I was 78 years old the day I found the letter that changed everything. Funny how life still manages surprises long after you've stopped expecting them. It happened on a quiet Tuesday in March, the kind of afternoon when the world feels made of dust motes and memories. The handyman had come by to fix a leak in the roof, and while he clomped around up there, I decided to clean the attic, a task I'd been avoiding since Harold died. The stairs creaked like they were warning me, "Don't go digging in the past, Eleanor." But the past, I've learned, doesn't stay buried just because you're afraid to touch it. The air up there smelled of cedar and thyme. Old trunks, yellowed books, boxes labeled in Harold's neat handwriting. I was halfway through sorting when I saw a small wooden chest tucked behind a stack of hat boxes. It wasn't one of ours. The wood was darker, carved with initials I didn't recognize, M+E, 1946. My heart gave a strange little flutter. When I lifted the lid, the hinges groaned like they hadn't moved in decades. Inside was a bundle of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon and one envelope addressed in elegant cursive, "Eleanor Mayfield, do not open unless you're ready." That was my maiden name. My hands trembled so hard I had to sit down on an old trunk. I knew the handwriting before I even looked twice. Michael. I hadn't thought of him in years, though for a long time I thought I'd never think of anyone else. We'd met in 1945, right after the war, when I was 19 and he was 22, home from the Navy with eyes too old for his face. He used to whistle Blue Skies while fixing radios at his father's shop. Said he liked making broken things work again. I suppose that's why he loved me. I was all hope and missing pieces. We were engaged for 6 months. Then Harold came back from overseas, and my family insisted I do the sensible thing. Harold had a good job, steady manners, and my father's approval. Michael had dreams. That's what they called them back then when a man wanted more than a paycheck, dreams. I wrote Michael a letter ending things. He never replied. I married Harold that fall, tucked Michael into the drawer of things you can't keep, and learned to smile without wondering. Until that Tuesday. I sat in the attic with the rain starting to drum on the roof and stared at the envelope. Do not open unless you're ready. Ready for what? Guilt? Regret? Or the truth that might have made my whole life different? I broke the seal. The letter inside was dated October 2nd, 1946, the week after my wedding. The paper was thin, almost translucent. His words were written in the same confident strokes I remembered. Eleanor. I tried to come to the church, but your father stopped me. I wanted to tell you something that night, but maybe it's better this way. There's a child, ours, born last month in Savannah. Her name is Grace. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to trap you. But you deserved the truth. If you ever want to find us, look for the house with the lilac tree by the bay. You'll always know where to knock. Michael. The attic tilted around me. I pressed the letter to my chest, feeling the world rearrange itself in silence. A child. Our child. I must have sat there for hours. The rain stopped, the light shifted, and still I couldn't move. I thought of all the years I'd spent teaching, cooking, decorating Christmas trees, never knowing there was another branch of my life out there, growing quietly without me. That night, I made tea and read the letter again, tracing the words until they blurred. Then I did something I hadn't done in decades. I prayed, not for forgiveness, but for courage. The next morning, I took the early bus to Savannah. It had been 58 years since that letter was written, and I didn't know what I expected to find, maybe an empty lot, maybe nothing at all. But when the bus turned down Bay Street, my breath caught. There it was, a small white house with a lilac tree blooming wild beside it. I stood at the gate, heart pounding. A woman about 50 opened the door, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her hair was gray blonde, her eyes a familiar shade of blue I'd seen once in the mirror of youth. "Can I help you?" she asked. I swallowed hard. "I think you might be my granddaughter." The towel slipped from her fingers. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she whispered, "You're Eleanor?" She told me her name was Margaret and Grace's daughter. Grace had passed away 3 years earlier. She invited me in, and we sat at her kitchen table surrounded by the smell of cinnamon and the sound of seagulls outside. She brought out an old photograph, a young woman holding a baby, smiling beside a man I knew instantly. "Michael." "She always wondered if you ever got his letter," Margaret said softly. I couldn't speak. Tears spilled before I could stop them. All those years I'd believed I'd chosen stability over love, and in doing so, I'd lost both. We talked until dusk. She told me about Grace's life, how Michael had raised her alone after Grace's mother died young, how she'd become a nurse, how she'd always kept a photograph of a woman she called the one who might have been. Before I left, Margaret handed me a small box. Inside was a silver locket engraved with the initials EM, my own. "She said it belonged to her mother," Margaret said. "Maybe it was meant for you." I wear it now, every day. Not as a symbol of regret, but of rediscovery. I wear it now, every day. Not as a symbol of regret, but of rediscovery. Because that letter didn't ruin my life, it reminded me I still had pieces worth reclaiming. Sometimes I sit by my window, watching the lilacs sway in the breeze, and I imagine Grace as a little girl by the bay, asking her father about the mother she never met. And in that quiet, I whisper to her across the years, "I didn't forget you, my darling. I just didn't know where to look." If you're listening tonight, somewhere in your own attic of memories, I hope you remember this: it's never too late to open the letter your heart's been afraid to read.